Okay. You see my screen okay, folks? Yeah, okay, super duper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have your wonderful faces over on a separate screen. So if you sort of see me looking away from you, it's because I'm actually sort of checking out whether or not you got a thumbs up or something like that. I spent a lot of time thinking about what I wanted to include within this actual webinar, and I think really what I want to do is make this as conversational as I possibly can, because the reality is in 25-30 minutes, you know, we can skim the surface on a number of things, but we can't really do a kind of deep dive into any one particular area. So the way that I thought I'd put it together is, if you've got questions, don't suffer in silence. If you want to ask me something, just kind of say as we go. Now, keep in mind that the whole time I'm looking at you, I can't see you. So if I want to have a look at you, I've got to kind of look over here, but stick a hand up, something like that, and either myself, I've gone blank on your name from the chamber, which is appalling of me. But my colleague from the chamber will sort of bring you into the conversation. Now, when I wanted to kind of get, I know it's really bad of me, isn't it? It's really bad. It's really bad, and it's on the tip of my tongue as well. And for some reason, I want to. Livia.
I'm not going to remind you. Oh, okay.
Livia, it's Olivia. Yeah. Goodness gracious me. So what I thought I'd do is spend a bit of time during the course of this webinar, and I am going to talk about sort of some of the practicalities of how to increase sales online, but I also want to thread through just a little bit of my own experiences that I've had along the way, and to try and sort of boil those down to sort of share some practical lessons. And I think the first thing that I want to sort of do is highlight this. And this is actually a personal development model, but believe it or not. Just quick show of hands. Has anybody seen this picture before? Circles of influence, circles of concern. So Michael, you have? No, there's a lot of people with their videos off today, so but that's fine. So, but okay. So well, that's kind of useful then if a whole bunch of you haven't seen this. So actually, they use this model in personal development, and it's a way of actually growing your capabilities as an individual. And in simple terms, what they sort of say is that there are really two places that you can direct your attention. You've got your circle of influence here, which are all of the things that are actually within inside your own control. So things that you can directly have a bearing on through your own actions or through your own skills, or perhaps even through your own network. And then there's this kind of wider ring, which is the circle of concern. So this might be things where we don't have the knowledge to do it, we don't have the budget to do it, we haven't got the capabilities to do it, or even that famous expression, it's the unknown unknowns. It's the things that we actually don't know about, or it's the things that we know that we simply can't do. And I think that actually one of the things that I would recommend that people think about a lot is just taking a moment to, when you're thinking about trying to grow your business on any online platform, have a think about this model and have a think about what can you actually control yourself and what is actually in your circle of concern, what's beyond your skill set or beyond your knowledge. Because if you actually begin to break down the tasks that need completing into these separate areas, actually it's a really useful exercise, because the things that end up being in your circle of influence, actually they might be the things that you can set aside a little bit of time for, and that you can work away on yourself. And of course, if you're doing it yourself, you're not incurring cost for those things. And equally, if you're actually taking on the areas that are inside your circle of influence, then if you do reach a spending point and you need to commit some capital to having people bridge the areas that you're not an expert in, then actually you're making sure that you're only spending money on the elements of a service that genuinely require someone else's involvement and someone else's input. And actually, here's the thing. I think that you might surprise yourself with just how much sits inside your own circle of influence. So, and this is going to be a little bit of a running theme, a little bit of a trend that which I'm going to use throughout the presentation. The mediums that we'll consider over the course of the next sort of 25 minutes or so are these three. So search engine optimization, pay-per-click, and account-based marketing, or LinkedIn really. Okay, so account-based marketing is a relatively new term, although LinkedIn itself is not a particularly new platform anymore. In fact, what a lot of people don't realize is that LinkedIn was actually created before Facebook was created. And so you've probably heard the terms SEO, you've probably heard the terms pay-per-click, and you've of course heard of LinkedIn, but maybe that term account-based marketing might be a sort of new term for you. But in essence, what that last one is, what the account-based marketing is actually choosing who it is that you want to promote your services to, and actually being proactive in the way that you do it and tailoring your messages and your approach to fit those individual companies or those people that you are engaging with. And in simple terms, these sort of two areas at the top, they're almost clustered together because they're actually about directing inbound opportunities to your business. You're looking for somebody to do something on your website or to click a paid link and then to come along and make contact with you. And listen, I'm a big advocate of those sorts of things done well. There's actually a little more exciting in life than getting the email that pops into your inbox with a new inquiry from somebody who's interested in using your service. And that's something that you wouldn't typically get with something like LinkedIn. The big benefit of account-based marketing is that you can be highly selective about who it is that you're targeting and how it is that you're adjusting your messages to suit those people. So these are kind of three main areas. And you know what? These are not the only areas. Like I'll just give a quick shout out to Twitter. Twitter's not something which I do much with, but for example, I do know that lots of people across the county swear by Worcestershire hour. And I know that lots of people think that's a really wonderful way to actually have a bit of rapport, a bit of banter with other businesses and to get your name known with other. So this list is not exhaustive and there are other highly credible ways of growing your business. But the thing which I would sort of want to caution you about, and again, this is where I sort of thread in my own experience, and it's to beware, because not everybody is as lovely as all of the people that are on this webinar today. And in actual fact, you know, I can recount a genuinely true story from a number of years ago where we commissioned in an SEO person, and we kind of got the pitch where they sort of explained that, well, listen, there's a big gap between you starting to pay and you starting to get the results. And, you know, and they explain why, because it takes a while for things to get indexed. It takes a while for the results to sort of take shape. And, you know, we found that we were sort of 3 or 4 months in and we've been paying the money. And then actually you sort of feel that you're almost emotionally committed to that process. And so particularly in the SEO world, before you set about trying to make money online, I think it's important to make sure that you're considering how to not lose money online. And I'll talk about some of the specific suggestions that I have for that in just a moment. And the thing is, you know, sometimes, you know, I've dealt with lots and lots of different agencies and consultants over the years. And there are some really wonderful people out there who genuinely have a really deep understanding of, say, how to promote you on LinkedIn or how to actually systematically grow your business using SEO, and the same with pay-per-click. But there's also a kind of contingency of people who, and these are perhaps the most dangerous people out there, who think that they know. They think that they know how to do it, and they'll take your money on it, but what you'll find is that you won't necessarily be getting the results that you are looking for. And so I think that before we all start making lots of money, it's just important to be aware of the fact that if you are choosing to use someone who helps you bridge that circle of concern set of tasks, the things that are outside your core skill set, that you come into it wide-eyed and you come into it with a clear plan about how to manage those relationships. And I think that in the end, what it comes down to is having a clear idea about the metrics that you're going to use to measure the success of something. And, you know, I know from when I sort of worked in a sort of corporate environment that we had a very simple mantra, which is if you don't measure it, it won't happen. It really is as simple as that. And whilst we're not looking for death by numbers, particularly in the area of looking to grow your sales online, I think it's worthwhile actually doing some detail and understanding what an end-to-end process looks like in terms of making that sale. So almost that customer journey. So if, for example, we were talking about pay-per-click, PPC, and I'll come to this in some slides in a moment, but there are a specific set of metrics that you might want to consider, including things like your click-through rate, your cost per acquisition, the cost per lead, and then working out, you know, whether or not things like your cost per acquisition actually stand up in a robust way against the lifetime value of a customer. So there's all sorts of metrics which experience tells me are important to hold people to account to, or for you to be using yourself. Equally with SEO, I think it can be natural for us to kind of gravitate towards a position in the SERP, the search engine results page, about where you're located in terms of your search results. And, you know, I want to be on the front page of Google or whatever. But actually, I don't know if I really give a stuff about being on the front page of Google. What I really care about are people buying my product. And so actually, if I'm not on the front page of Google, but I'm attracting the right audience, the right niche audience, and that they are moving through my site in a way and they're completing certain goals, then arguably that's a more important metric. So whenever we're either doing something within our circle of influence, the things that we can control, or whether or not we're going to be getting someone in to help bridge the gaps of the skills that we don't have, it's important to just do some research so that you can actually say to somebody, you know, these are the metrics that we intend to use. And, you know, if the supplier that you're looking at talking to is wary about pinning their colours to the mast for a clear set of metrics, and if they can't point you to a number of different customers who will speak to the return on investment that they have delivered for them, then it can be a solid indication that it's not a wise use of spend. You know, and there are other metrics before we might even sort of get into it, like metrics around, you know, the quality of the reviews that a company has. But most certainly for everything from PPC to SEO to account-based marketing, you should be able to find a series of benchmarks. So I'll give you one simple example. We're going to be doing some press release stuff in the coming weeks because we've put out a new piece of software, and that new piece of software has gained some fairly high profile customers, which we're really proud of. So we've engaged a company called Prime Mix Marketing, who I know are highly active in the sort of local business community. And I had a conversation with Christine from Prime Mix Marketing, and we discussed this idea of metrics. And you know, actually, in some respects, there has to be a kind of a give and take. So it's probably not viable for someone in a position like that to say, well, I will guarantee you a certain number of sales at the end of the process, because that's actually almost in their circle of concern. They can't control that aspect of the service. But what we have agreed as part of the commissioning process is that for the money that we'll spend, we will see a press release in a certain number of publications. Now, actually, that's great, because that's good for the supplier and it's good for us as the buyer, because we have a very simple metric which we're going to gauge success on to build trust in the relationship. So always be looking for the sort of the sensible metrics before you're engaging any suppliers. So in terms of SEO, how I would break it down for you, the primary circle of concern for you is what I would refer to as on-page optimization. So just a quick show of hands. Has anybody heard the terms on-page optimization and off-page optimization? Have you heard those? Okay, some of you have, some of you haven't. Okay, fine. On-page SEO, okay, effectively, what on-page SEO is everything that you might do, and I'm sorry if I make you feel dizzy looking at, this word cloud. On-page SEO is everything that you might do to your site that happens on your website. So specifically, that might include making sure that you've optimized the content for the keywords that you want, that you believe that your buyers are likely to be searching for. And actually, I could spend another half an hour with you talking about keyword research and how you approach the task of keyword research. Okay, but these are things that you can do on your site. So if you're selling photography, for example, then you might spend some time thinking about the search terms that somebody's looking for. Are they looking for best photographers in Worcestershire, or you know, one comes to mind, you know, they might be looking for venues in Worcestershire, you know, so actually have a think about the sorts of language that your buyer is likely to be looking for. But then there are lots of other small things that make a difference on page for your SEO profile. And I think all of these are within your own circle of control, because actually, if you take a little bit of time to understand what they are, most of them are not, they don't require a significant technical uplift. So for example, I don't know if anybody has heard of the idea of metadata. So metadata. So let me I think you all still see my screen. So let me just bring this over here. So can you see here for Collate Systems, it says engage every B2B lead as if they're the only one. Our systems will identify and engage, blah, 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 blah. That is the metadata. That's the data that's been added behind the website. Okay. So, and if I were to go to the website, and I have a look up here, I've got something called a page title. Now that page title reads more information. B2B lead generation system, generate and nurture new sales. Now actually, all of the information that you can add there is very useful from an SEO perspective. And all of these things are what we refer to as on-page SEO. So making sure that your content is optimized to match the language that your buyers are likely to look for. Make sure that the metadata, so the page titles and the page descriptions, are done properly. Making sure that you have, for example, no broken links on your website, so that if people are clicking on something, it doesn't go to a page that no longer exists. So a bit like tidying your house, getting it ready for guests coming to stay. Now, the most important thing that I can suggest to you for your on-page SEO is to think about, what is the goal? What do you want someone to do when they visit your website? What is the primary objective? Because I'm always surprised at how many people, they think, oh, I need a website, okay? And they maybe stick a contact us page on there, but they don't think through, actually, what am I hoping that the user will do? And this is particularly important because actually, guess what? Users are lazy. We're all really lazy. And I know, because when I go to a website, if it doesn't instantly, within 0.39 of a second, look like it's what I want, then I tend to just bounce back off of it and I tend to go somewhere else. So actually, we need to make our websites clear about what it is that we want the user to do, so that we make the decision easy for them to take that next step. So for example, on the Collate Systems website, we've optimized it because we want people to request a demo of our application. So you'll see it here, you'll see it here. As we scroll down, that you'll see the opportunity to learn more, book a demo, book a demo, book a demo, book a demo. Down here, would you like to request a demo? Right. So all along the way, our customer journey is optimized no matter where people go in the system on the website to request that demonstration of what it is that we do. So I'd highly recommend taking a moment to think about what is the primary objective for your website visitors when they're on the site, and then actually asking one or two people, go on my website, is it clear to you without me telling you what we want you to do? Okay, and if you can get people to think about that primary goal, that primary objective, that then along with sorting out the keyword optimization, the page titles and the meta descriptions, that's a big step that you can take yourself without probably having to engage outside help. Now, the circle of concern for SEO purposes, in my view, you know, there may be some people that are experts at this, and it's what we call the off-page optimization. And for this, what I really mean is, you can have some really super content on your website. You can have some wonderful content. You can have a great customer journey lined up. You can have all of your page meta stuff done to a really high standard. But the truth is, if your website isn't more broadly connected to the internet as a whole, then you won't be recognized as an authoritative site by Google. Now, bear in mind, Google's objective is very simple. It's to serve the right answer to the user the first time. So actually, the way that they begin to identify this is to look at things like backlinks. So to look at the number of times that other websites have linked to your website. And if those websites are well thought of, you get extra brownie points. So this is why there are some deeply unscrupulous people out there which will say, well, I'll get you 5,000 backlinks or whatever. And actually, it sounds like a good idea, but if it's coming from a load of old rubbish, it's like feeding rubbish into your website. Now, actually, the truth is, and I think the hidden cost of SEO is that you can get the best SEO person in the world, and they can get your on-page SEO done to a remarkably high level, but if they haven't got an off-page SEO strategy in place, then you're never going to get that high as to where you need to be. Okay, so actually that's the hidden cost. So on-page SEO is something that most people can take on themselves, given a bit of time and effort. Off-page SEO tends to require a bit of expertise and a bit of budget. Okay, so a couple of thoughts on that for you. So, you know, a couple of things then. I spoke about metrics earlier, you know, and if I were engaging, you know, an SEO person, you know, the obvious one to think about is a page rank. Okay, and as I say, the page rank is really, really great. Okay, but the truth is, most of us are running relatively small businesses. Okay, there are companies out there that are investing tens of thousands of pounds every year with teams of people just trying to get their sites to the highest position. So it's almost about understanding, it's a bit like, you know, if we all decided today, hey, listen, I tell you what, after this webinar, should we start a football team? Okay, great. Let's see if we can have a match against Manchester United and kick their ass, right? It's not going to happen, okay? So actually, it's about choosing where is the most effective to compete. And your page rank is an important one, but actually, the shorter the keyword term that you are looking at, the less likely you are to feature anywhere significantly in those page ranks. So that's why people end up looking for what's referred to as long tail keywords. I don't know if you've heard that term before or not, but actually this is where some of the expertise comes in, that actually you can spend some time searching for search terms that are maybe only getting 30 or 40 or 50 queries a month, but actually it might be something really niche. It might be something like research and development tax credits in Worcestershire. Okay, now actually you might not get to the top of the rankings for research and development tax credits because it's maybe dominated by a load of people. But actually, if you look at the long tail versions of those words, and there are tools out there to help you with that, then you might stand a chance of competing in a higher position for those longer tail words. So Page rank is important, but comes with that big caveat. Traffic levels are very important, but all of this pales into insignificance, because ultimately what you really care about is people converting on your website and actually carrying out the task that you're now going to optimize your site to do. And as I say, you know, for most of us, ultimately it's going to be about getting in touch, right? Getting in touch with us. But getting in touch is a little bit woolly. You know, actually, what am I getting when I get in touch? Okay. So we found that within Collate, when we moved away from having people suggested to contact us and having people requesting a demonstration, the number of people that we got actually clicking that button and completing the form and sending us their contact details rose significantly, because it was specific in nature. So have a think about what it is that your core proposition is, and how to optimize your site to get people to get in touch. You get in touch for your free assessment on this. Get in touch for your your appraisal of, you know, X, Y, and Z. To give people a reason to get in touch. The one area which I think can be interesting in terms of traffic, and that's where your traffic is coming from. A lot of people don't stop to look at referral pathways. Now, for this is where, you know, down here, we really start to get back into that circle of concern kind of area, because for most people, they don't have the skills to effectively navigate tools like Google Analytics. Now, actually, there are a lot of other tools which sit over the top of data systems like Google Analytics, which provide a far softer view of the data. And I've had some good experience, and I could make some recommendations for those, because actually what you might be interested in is, you know what, if every time you do Worcestershire Hour on Twitter, you see a sudden spike in traffic from Twitter coming to your website, well, actually, maybe that gives you an indication that you either need to double down on that, or it gives you an indication that actually, you know, you could begin to be more specific and say, you know what, if anyone goes to our site after Worcestershire and contacts us, we're going to give you a free X, Y, and Z. So understanding where your traffic is coming from is quite important. Which leads me on to the last sort of point here, which is about having easy to understand analytics. And again, for most people, we're all trying to just run our businesses, and having that deep understanding of digital analytics is not a core competency for most people. So if I were to be engaging someone, I'd want to be saying to them, okay, you're the expert in this, but what I want to do is I want to sit down and I want to identify 4 or 5 agreed metrics before we engage a service, such as percentage increase of traffic levels, page ranks for certain long-term keywords, the number of conversions we get on the website, and looking to see whether or not we get increased referral traffic from these particular sources. And I want you to create me a couple of simple reports, so that when I look at it, I haven't got to go and take a master's degree in Google Analytics. I can look and I can see that there's a bigger bar chart. Okay, and in the end, that's what it is that we're looking for. So they're my top tips with SEO. Now, in terms of PPC, and do shout if there's any questions at all, folks, as I go here. In terms of PPC, PPC is brilliant for losing lots and lots and lots of money on. That's been my experience. Now, that's not to say you can't get a great ROI on PPC. You absolutely can. But when I did it a few years ago, and we've done some bits since, but actually it's not a primary marketing source for us now. There were lots of ways that we lost money. And so what I'd like to do is kind of share those with you, so that if you are looking at a pay-per-click route, then you can avoid some of the pitfalls that we fell into as we went about this. So first of all, why is PPC great? PPC is great because you're never going to compete for some of those short keyword expressions, and PPC gives you the opportunity to jump to the top of the queue. Now, again, there's lots of tools out there which will help you identify the words that people might be searching for, and to set your budgets accordingly, so you can cut your cloth accordingly. And actually, there's lots of metrics that I'm going to suggest to you that you can use for making sure that you have good cost control of your PPC campaign, and that it is set to give you a good return on investment. But in essence, this is what it comes down to. The targeting of your keyword matters, okay? And actually, for most people, 90% of people, this will sit in your circle of concern, because it's not something that most of us are, we don't have a skill set which is optimized for working out the sorts of language that people, our buyers, are likely to be searching for. We might know what we do, but that's different to understanding the statements of intent that people are putting into search engines. So taking your time to work through and having a good indication about the sorts of keywords you're looking for and the sorts of levels of traffic that you're likely to attract is really important. And I know this because we made, a few years ago, we put a lot of money into a magazine website, and we spent a load of money on trying to drive traffic to the site. And what we realized as we went through that process is that the terms that we were using were so broad that we were capturing people whose intent wasn't aligned with what we were promoting. The problem was that every time we got that wrong, we were another £3 or £4 down. And depending on what it is that you're doing, some clicks, like in our business, a piece of software which does B2B lead generation, believe it or not, if we went down the PPC road, we might pay up to £35 a click to get people onto the website. Okay, so it's an easy place to lose money. So get that keyword targeting right. Now, here's the thing. What a lot of people won't tell you is there's a significant art to writing Google ads. Okay, you can fumble your way through a process of creating a PPC campaign. Sure, you might even get the keyword targeting right. But when you're writing the ads, you have to start with the end state for the buyer in mind. Okay, so actually, let me look around the room. Who do I know here? I'm going to pick on you, I'm afraid, Michael, because I have a few of you. I do know what you do, but I'm going to pick on you. So Michael does research and development tax credits. So Michael's PPC ad, if it said something like start your research and development tax claim here, that's going to be significantly less successful than secure a large tax rebate from the government, because that's the end state that the customer is looking to achieve. So when you're writing your ads for any PPC campaign, don't think about what you do, think about what has happened to the customer at the end of them using your service, and make sure that you thread that in. And so we lost money on that as well, right? So we lost money on the keyword targeting, and we lost money because we didn't fully understand how to write the ads. And then the last place that we lost some money was a complete blind spot, and it was landing page optimization. So the singular worst thing that you can ever do with a PPC campaign is direct someone to your homepage, because actually, at the point that somebody's put a search term in, they're declaring their intent. So I might search for wedding photographer, Worcestershire. Okay. Now I'm sort of declaring at that point that I have an interest in a wedding photographer in Worcestershire. So imagine I've written my ad. Well, you know, and my ad says something like, get fabulous pictures of your wedding at brilliant cost, or whatever. Now, if I then take that user to the homepage of my website, actually I'm creating friction between the point of them converting and the point of them having to use the website. So I'm adding in a series of clicks when they then got to do a further fact find. So if you're ever going to do a PPC campaign, for every set of keywords that you go for, you should have a landing page separate to your website, which is completely optimized to address the specific need of that person. So it might talk a lot about get your tax rebate from the government. Would you like to secure your tax rebate from the government? Click here to book your opening assessment. Okay, and actually you then might have a series of text which is optimized to address the questions that they might have, the process that you might go through. But everything about that page, it's no longer about your broad offering on your website. It's solely about addressing the intent of the search term that's caused them to click, and ultimately then getting them to convert to whatever the optimized goal is for that campaign. So, I'm running a little bit behind time here, folks. So I sort of need to sort of crack on really. Metrics that I would think about. Okay, the primary metric, which I encourage you to think about if you're ever doing a PPC campaign, is your cost per acquisition. Okay, so CPA. Now, the way that you get your cost per acquisition is to look at your total spend. So let's say, for example, I've spent £100 and I've got 3 customers for that. Then my cost per acquisition is £33 per acquisition. Okay, so it's not nice, simple one. But your cost per acquisition is ultimately a really sort of key one. Now, there are other metrics which are important. Like, for example, the click-through rate of the campaign is important because these different metrics point to efficiencies or deficiencies at different points in the process. So a poor click-through rate would indicate that you've either got your keyword optimization wrong, or it may indicate that you've got the keyword optimization right, but actually it might be the case that you haven't got the language for your ad written well enough, so it's not enticing enough for people to actually click on it and come to your website. Now, let's say people have clicked it and they have come to your website. The next thing you're going to be interested in is the conversion rate, because actually if I've got 100 people coming to my website, but only 1 of them are then actually completing my contact form, that can be a good indication that we haven't optimized the landing page properly. But ultimately, cost per acquisition is the kind of key metric. And, you know, there's an interesting model which I like people to look at, which is that it's worth looking at what you consider the lifetime value of a customer to be. And ideally, you want to make sure that your cost per acquisition is never greater than 1/3 of the lifetime value. Okay, so the LTV. So make sure that the cost per acquisition comes in as 1/3 or lower than the lifetime value of the customer. Now, I'm actually going to skip over a couple of slides here, I'm afraid, folks, but if anybody wants to pick up the conversation with me directly, I'm more than happy to help. I'm going to skip over the account-based marketing one, only to say that account-based marketing on LinkedIn, different kettle of fish. You can be proactive in nature, so you're not doing things and waiting for people to come to you. You can identify an audience. You can set about having intentional engagement, and there's a remarkably low cost to entry, because in the end, it's just your time for these sorts of things. So finally, a plan of attack. Start with the things that don't cost you money, right? That's the simplest tip that I can actually give you here. Start with the things which aren't going to cost you anything. So going right back to the central theme of the presentation, the circles of concern and the circles of influence. Focus on the areas that are your circles of influence that you can have a bearing on with your own actions, your on-page SEO, your account-based marketing, finding people to engage with. Recognize that your success, right? No one is going to score any huge goals by this time tomorrow. But as with anything in life, you will find that you are most successful by taking a series of small steps on a consistent basis. And that really is my top tip, that if you put in 30 minutes a day to progressing, if you pick 100 people on LinkedIn that represent the most golden opportunities for you, and then put 30 minutes a day into just working 5 or 6 of them, you'll find that actually over the next 2 months, you've built a relationship with a few of them, and that some of those people have converted to being willing participants in a conversation with you. If you're using outside providers, get them to pin their colors to the mast, right? Get them to agree on the metrics up front in advance. If they won't, run a mile. I don't care what anybody says, but you can put metrics around everything. And if people tell you that, well, it's very difficult to put metrics around that, maybe what they're saying is very difficult to put metrics around an end goal. Like, to go back to my example of prime mix marketing, it's perfectly reasonable for my engagement with prime mix marketing for them to say that they can't be asked to commit to a number of conversions on the website as the end goal, but we could agree an end state. We could agree a means metric. So rather than an end state metric of conversions on website, we could agree a means metric, something that will happen along the way, like the number of publications that you're going to see us in. But metrics, if you're ever going to employ outside people. And so finally, just focus on the things that you can control. You'd be surprised at the difference that you can make with it. And by doing so, you'll really bring yourself to a point where if you do need to engage outside providers for something, you actually have a better idea about what it is that you're going to be asking them to do, which puts you in a position, if you're not responsible for delivering the work, at least holding people to account in a way which gets the job done. So that's all from me. Can I answer any questions for you?
I think there's one in the chat, if you can see it, Martyn. If not, I'm happy to read it out.
Martyn, preparing for questions. What's your view on a digital marketing strategy starting from nothing? Should that stay or starting with PPC for immediate results, but then looking to win off of PPC and move to SEO? It takes up to 2 weeks to index page changes, possibly starting PPC or right. Yeah. So listen, PPC great, and as I say, I think it's absolutely got its place. The main thing is to get your ducks in a row on it. Okay, you can absolutely deliver a superb return on investment with PPC, but be warned, it's just as easy to hemorrhage money. Okay, so that's why my top tips are: make sure that you've done the analysis of the market segments properly, you've got the keywords done properly. The person that you're asking to help you doesn't just understand how to work the AdWords platform, but understands the nuances of how to sell via Google Ads so that it's enticing for people to click. And that I'm amazed at the number of people that say, oh, I know all about PPC. And I say, do you handle the landing pages? Landing pages? Oh, I don't know anything about that. And we think, so actually, you're going to take the customer to a point where they've spent loads of money on driving traffic to a website, but they haven't given any thought to actually getting those people to convert. Okay, so keyword optimization, ads optimization, landing page optimization. Those are the three things. But absolutely, there's no harm in doing it at all. And it's going to take you longer than 12 weeks for an SEO strategy, because even if Google index your changes, and it's not 12 weeks, they'll index your changes significantly quicker than that, because you can even tell them to come back and index it. But you'll only ever get it so far with your on-page optimization. And that's the other point I'm making, that you can have the most optimized sites in the world with the best content, but if it's not highly regarded from Google with a network of other links to other websites, it's never going to be performing as well as it might do. So PPC, definitely short term, get those things right. With your SEO, make sure that you're thinking about establishing that network of connections in and out of your site. Is that all right for you, Andrew? Yeah.
You've
Okay.
there's a few more. Have you got the chat open? Can you see?
Can you read them for me, Olivia?
I can read them. Yeah, that's.
I'm going to say your name as many times as I can now as part of my penance.
I do forgive you. Don't worry. Okay, so where did we get to? So Andrews, we did. Okay, so next one's from Paul. Any guidance for avoiding clickbait while optimizing your on-site SEO?
Don't keyword dump. That's a big thing. Okay, so if someone's looking for wedding photography, it's fine to get variants of that phrase and to use it in your titles. So title might be looking for wedding photography in Worcestershire, and then you might even start with, if you're looking for wedding photography in Worcestershire, then, but if actually you start to spam it in, then that's called keyword stuffing, and that can sort of get you marked down slightly. In the end, what you're actually saying is two slightly competing things, because clickbait tends to be offsite. So clickbait tends to be getting people to click something to come to your site. Once they're on your site, you're then very much thinking in terms of optimizing for achieving a specific goal. Okay, and actually, we haven't got time now, but one of the things which is worthwhile doing is if you can find a good analytics person, you can set up goal tracking in Google Analytics. You can actually set it to say the whole point of the website is to say book a demo, right? And then you can begin to work out how close people are getting to that goal, where it's falling apart, where they're leaving the site, where other things are kind of missing or these sorts of things. So there's a lot that you can do, but no, clickbait and on page, two slightly different things. I don't think clickbait is something that we particularly need to worry about because we're not going to be putting out kind of Daily Mail style headlines all across social media. At least I would hope not. So I hope that answers that for you.
Okay, next up, what website platform would you suggest when building a website with e-commerce?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think it depends on what you're looking for. I know that WordPress support something called WooCommerce, and I hear lots of people saying lots of nice things about that. But increasingly, the one which I hear people talking about in very glowing terms is Shopify, because of some of the things that it actually include. So I think they've kind of thought the use case of e-com through to within an inch of its life. Now I think the difference is you might pay slightly more for Shopify, but that's as I understand it. Really, it's good. There are loads of e-com platforms out there actually, but WooCommerce plays particularly nicely with WordPress. Shopify does as well, and I think Shopify gives lots of nice tools for sort of managing catalogs and these sorts of things. So probably one of those two.
Okay, next question. I'm building a new website on the Wix platform. Is it possible to do a good job of SEO on this platform?
You know, look, it's a great low code platform, and if you want to do something which is kind of drag and drop and all the rest of it, then that's fine. Can you do a good job? Yeah, you can do a good job. Can you do like the world's best job? Maybe not, because you can't get under the bonnet of it, and I think that's ultimately what it comes down to. Now I haven't used Wix for so long, but unless it's fundamentally changed from what it was, it's basically a drag and drop tool, and they expose certain elements for you to use, but it's what I would refer to as a closed environment. So for example, like and as I say, maybe it's changed a little bit since I used it, but for example, with WordPress, if you really desperately care about SEO and you're prepared to pay for it, then you can use something called Yoast SEO, and there's a paid version, and they're constantly staying abreast with sort of changes within the Google search criteria, and they're making sure that things like rich snippets are included in your website, and you've got control of the schema documents and these sorts of things. So you can do a good job, and there's a low cost threshold for getting in the club there, and it's a great stepping stone, but it's probably not as sophisticated as some of the more open source platforms.
Okay, and final question. Would you recommend Sales Navigator on LinkedIn?
Yes.
Very simple.
Yeah, I would for a very simple reason. A couple of reasons, right? Actually, 3 reasons. I'm going to give you a bonus reason. I recommend SalesNav because what they're selling you, and I think for each person in Collate, we spend £550 a year for it. Okay, and what we're buying for that is the ability to search accurately. Right, that's what it comes down to. Right, you can go to the free version of LinkedIn, and you can use their search tools, and you'll get 4 or 5 filters, and you could search for, say, director in Worcestershire. Okay, now 2 problems. First of all, you'll hit what they refer to as the commercial search limit very quickly, so you'll eventually get a notice that says, oh, it looks like you're trying to search for people on LinkedIn. Would you like to pay for that? Okay, but the other issue is that in fact, if everyone's got 2 minutes, are you still on my screen, folks? Are you? Is that what's happening here? Let me. What I'll do is I'll show you why. I recommend it. So what ultimately you are buying is this ability to search, right? So I come along here, and if I use the search feature, come on, if I use the search feature, I've got a relatively limited number of search fields. Okay, so locations, current company, and even if I go to this all filters, they make it look like a lot, but it's not really. Whereas when I come over to SalesNav, the big value add is that I can do a search which uses such granular detail. So I can come along here and search for, I've got a slight lag on the connection for some reason. Here we go. So I can search for where people are. I can search for how closely I'm connected, the industry that they're in, the seniority level within the company, the function within the company, the number of years in position, the company type, how big the company is. So actually what you get at the end of that, folks, it's something really, really accurate. And so particularly if you actually care about doing account-based marketing to a high standard, it's the same as any process, right? Quality in, quality out. If you're finding the wrong people and connecting with them, you're not going to make sales. And actually one of the things which we do is we target very senior people. We target perhaps a marketing director or a sales director in a company with maybe 50 staff up, but we go and find them when they've only been in position for less than a year, right? Because those people, they are in that change maker mindset. So for us, having that ability to approach them and say, this is what we do, you know, you're not long in post. So actually, I highly recommend it for that, highly recommend it. So the searching is a lot more accurate. Plus, if you're ever serious about getting on with it and doing it, the rate limits are a lot higher once you pay. So you can do unlimited searching, you know, not quite unlimited, but you can do lots and lots of connections, lots of profile views. You've got access to more data. The final thing, the reason I pay is because I use their learning platform. So I use LinkedIn Learning, right? So I've done all sorts of courses. On LinkedIn that which then feature as part of your profile. And so, you know, I've had the odd person reach out to me, so I see, you know, about X or Y or Z. And let me kind of scroll down here. Here we go. So so I can see all of the courses that I've actually done via LinkedIn. And you know what? They're a bit of fun, right? They're really just, you know, they're videos, they've got quizzes, they're taught by experts, but you can come along and you can brush up your skills and then they're added to your profile. So yeah, definitely recommend it.
Okay, thanks, Martyn. Are there any more questions? Just seeing if anyone's putting their hand up.
No? Okay, super duper.
Yeah, I'm going to go with that's it for questions. So a huge thank you on behalf of all of us, Martyn, for that. I know we have literally just hit time, but I'm glad we filled all of the time. So I'm hopeful everybody's got as much information as they needed to get from this webinar.